Welcome to the session, Knowledge Creation by Africa and for Africa. We are delighted to have a fantastic panel here to discuss this extremely important topic. I'm Tanya Lima, I'm Director of Global Engagement here at King's College London, and this is the Central Directorate that supports all our faculties in their international academic collaborations, both in research and education. And I'm delighted to have with us today here Professor Ihron Rensburg, Professor Melanie Abbas, Dr. Dorothy Okello, and Maria Wekesa with us to discuss capacity building. I'll introduce each panelist before they share their initial thoughts with us, and then there should be time for some questions from the audience. Just to contextualize the session, let's just remind everybody that Africa has 20% of the world population, but is responsible for 3% of knowledge production. But even what this usually repeated statistic is can be pose problems, because what does it mean, 3% of knowledge production? The metric itself is problematic and reflects already a lot of the inequality and perceptions that we hope to address in this session as well. But in any case, I think it's clear that there are big inequalities in knowledge production and innovation, and that the tremendous need for capacity building and addressing these current inequalities. So I'm glad we have an hour to discuss this, and I'll start with Professor Ihron Rensburg. Professor Rensburg is Ombud Interim of the University of Cape Town, Chairperson of the South Africa National UNESCO Commission, Senior Advisor to the Principal and Visiting Professor at King's College London, and Honorary Professor at Nelson Mandela University. Most recently, he was Chairperson of the Ministerial Committee on the Review of the South African Higher Education, Science and Technology Landscape, and Administrator of Vaal University of Technology. He was the founding Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, prior to which he was CE Strategic Services at the South African Broadcasting Corporation, among many other roles. So we are in very good hands to discuss this, and over to you, Ihron. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tanya, and thank you for this opportunity to join the esteemed colleagues on this panel for this discussion and reflection session. Tanya, of course, you have been with us right from the outset as we imagined, and then, if you like, tongue-in-cheek, engineered the project that we're reflecting on today. As Tanya has just indicated, Africa's knowledge, that is its scientific knowledge and innovation system, is small and fragmented. If we just have a quick look at it, we find that the largest producers of the 2 to 3% contribution to global output sit in South Africa at roughly 40%, and then Egypt and Nigeria are the second and third largest systems, if you like. But clearly, even then, these systems are small. A useful reference always that I kind of not rule of thumb as much, but a reference that I often use is that in the instance of South Africa, despite all of the pomp and ceremony of many vice chancellors and presidents of universities, South Africa's output is equivalent to that of Harvard. So a country producing 40% of Africa's research output is the equivalent of Harvard. And then you can figure out, if we just add 4 more universities, Stanford and perhaps Cambridge or Oxford, then you will have 4 or 5 universities producing all of Africa's output. That just gives you a feeling of scale, of contribution. Now, of course, we know the history. We know the historic and the recent reasons for that, of deliberate underdevelopment of Africa's university system. And post-independence, despite an initial a big push in investment in the university, in a very small university system throughout the 1960s, forced in part by structural adjustment programs. The World Bank, in effect, made the pronouncement that there is no point investing in Africa's universities, and that the limited resources should be invested in primary school education and to some extent secondary school education. So you can imagine then for a lengthy period from the early 60s right into the 2020s, a 60-year period, and before it, if you insist, I guess a 1,000-year period of underinvestment, because again, and today is not really about a history lesson or reflection on Africa's university systems, but right up until about the 11th, 12th, 13th century, Africa's universities were extraordinarily productive, again small, but certainly ahead of Europe and of North America. Of course, then we had colonialism impacting that. It's against that background that we also are faced with the fact that Africa is entering, and some parts of the continent have already entered the demographic window. A great opportunity, but also a grave risk for the continent. A grave risk because of the absence of an expanded, a substantive, and a large university system that ordinarily would have enabled Africa as a continent to benefit from this demographic dividend. I mean, if we compare China, irrespective of the state planning approach there, irrespective of its ideological position, if we just look at China from roughly the 1960s until now, we've seen a massive expansion in the public university system. They're deliberate, planned. And so short of that scale of effort, we have to therefore consider how we can contribute in a significant manner nonetheless to enabling our continent, Africa, to be able to build deep academic and institutional capacity for the long run, to enable it to scale up its knowledge production, to expand its innovation system in manners that will respond to its Pan-African questions and challenges. That demographic window that I referred to earlier is contributing in a significant manners to the population push into Africa's cities. So a younger population, largely urban-based in the next 30 years or so. We expect Africa to be over 70% urbanized. These will place immense pressures on Africa's cities. And that is the context in which we then, as a team of colleagues here at King's, but also at University of New South Wales, at Arizona State University, with our peers at Makerere, at University of Nairobi, at Ibadan, and at University of Ghana, Legon, began this journey almost 3 years ago, led by our vice chancellors and principals, to begin to reflect on what contribution as a collective of 7 institutions we can make to building this long run capacity, academic and institutional capacity, to respond to this demographic dividend and to respond to the challenges that comes with it. And so that then is the essential background for us to arrive at an outcome that suggested that perhaps it's important for us to explore the area of engineering, partly because of the claims that engineering or engineers are significant contributors and influencers to and within innovation systems. And in particular, if we consider the areas of, if I just pick on the areas that we have looked on and are looking at, Tina, we looked at agriculture as a major area. So food security, again, we looked at from the lens of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, so agriculture and sustainable food systems and food security. We looked at energy and against a backdrop of climate change, and we recognized the immense pressures there will be on power, on water, on road and rail infrastructure, particularly when we see cities that are 5 million now stepping up to becoming 20 million mega cities in the next 20 to 30 years. And so I want to conclude then by just reflecting on 2 or 3 interventions. The first was our desire to build across the 7 institutions a community of scholars with a shared appreciation of the question, the issues, and so to build a peer group of colleagues across these institutions, particularly colleagues in the engineering space. Again, secondly, we recognize the importance of understanding the capacities, the capabilities, the opportunities, the challenges facing the 7 engineering faculties across our institutions. And so a key part of our work was then to undertake a peer review a study of each of the 7 institutions' capabilities. And today we have an excellent account of a publishable account of the capabilities of our 7 institutions. And it's really that which then informed the work that will then continue to flow in the years ahead. And we have Dorothy here with us this afternoon to reflect on her journey as she began to walk with us and to construct and imagine and plan, if you like, the work over the last few years. And so I guess the conclusion on my side as we enter this conversation is to acknowledge the importance of ambition in a context of a small, fragile knowledge and innovation system. We cannot continue endlessly to complain about it. All of us in our small and significant manners should contribute. So ambition, vision, the importance of commitment from the principal or president or vice chancellor level through to the dean and the heads of academic departments, in this case in engineering, all key partners in this project of ours, to have plans and to have partners who are deeply committed to this initiative. And I want to, in particular, acknowledge Professor Ed Byrne, the former Vice Chancellor or Principal at King's, but also his peers at ASU and at ALS. My goodness, I'm just struggling a little bit. Australian National University, but also in particular for Professor Barnabas the principal and colleague at Makerere for having taken on this challenge and leading it from the front, so to speak. We're immensely grateful, and we launched this initiative then at Makerere, expecting to expand it in time to Nairobi University, to Ibadan, to University of Ghana, Legon, and most recently we have brought on board University of Pretoria, and I should also acknowledge in particular Professor Olina Shakin, as well as Professor Ayete, the latter being the Secretary General of ARUA, who's also been central in this journey of ours, this 3-year-long journey, which has brought us to a point now where earlier this month we could have made the call for students into the doctoral academy at Makerere. But I look forward then to hearing from the colleagues as they reflect in some more detail on this ambitious and very important journey of ours. Thanks very much, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Ihron. This sets the context perfectly, really. And if I may now ask Professor Melanie Abbas for her view. Melanie is a psychiatric epidemiologist and professor of global mental health at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience here at King's, and also a consultant psychiatrist at the South London and Maudsley NHS Trust. She is co-chair of King's African Regional Network. Melanie's research expertise is development and evaluation of interventions for common mental disorders in low-resource settings, especially in countries with a high burden of HIV infection. She has worked on the Friendship Bench program for common mental disorders in Zimbabwe since 2009, and Melanie's work has been further characterized by capacity building, having worked on 2 large African-led capacity building programs since 2009. So Melanie, we are counting on, really looking forward to hearing your thoughts, because you've been working with African partners for a long time. So over to you, Melanie. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya, so much. And I really want to thank Prof. Rensburg for just doing more than setting the scene. I just found that breadth and that also that, you know, the words that you were using, the passion, the ambition, I just found it very, very inspiring. So thank you so much, Prof. Rensburg, for that, for opening this. And I feel very fortunate to be invited. So I'm going to try to share my screen, and I think this time it should work. Can you see that, Tanya?
Yes, it's working.
And I think what I'll do is try to put it on a full slideshow so that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So going from the broad vision that Prof. Rensburg started us off with, I'm going to take the lens down into some detail, and I just really wanted to share some reflections from working on 2 African-led programs since about 2010 in capacity building. So I wanted to start by acknowledging the people that were leading those programs, and also some of those that have taken part and, you know, are on the PhD journey or have completed it. Prof. James Hakim, for those who you don't know, was sadly taken by COVID, and absolutely James is an outstanding global health leader, revered around the world, and I was very, very fortunate to work with him for a number of years. He was PI for a number of capacity building programs. Others, I won't go through names just to save time, but Tariro, Primrose Tarasai have worked with, and Dixon Chibanda, who I'll come on to talk about through current work. So I think my learning about capacity building started with the Medical Education Partnership Initiative, and I was interested in what Prof. Rensburg was saying about this, you know, this concern about lack of funding for postgraduate programs in African countries, and how this was a phase where President Obama was president of the US. And so this came really through his commitment, and Guesberg, Prof. Guesberg was the czar, really, his lead for African health. So the Medical Education Partnership Initiative, which ran for 5 years, was an African-led capacity building program across 13 African institutions. You can see the geography is a bit skewed here. We've got a lot down the east and southern coast of Africa, and just a small number of West African universities involved. The mission was to increase and retain numbers and quality of graduates, improve capacity for regionally relevant research, build communities of practice, and ensure sustainability. And I was a co-PI. James was the chief investigator of the Zimbabwe Award, and we had a very big program, around $10 million, with US partners. And I'm not going to go into details, but I think the key reflections, we're going back to 2010 Zimbabwe now. So coming out of a period of hyperinflation, massive brain drain, and we actually had to begin really at grassroots with building internet access, digging cables, making buildings fit for purpose. When we looked at the training that was being offered, we actually had to build clinical services so that postgraduate higher training was fit for purpose. So I'm particularly thinking about mental health. The main part of the program, I should say, was for HIV, AIDS, TB, malaria, but for mental health we had really quite a significant budget. And Dr. Walter Mangezi took over during the program as the lead for the mental health program at the UZ. There was heavy investment in the teaching skills of faculty. This was something that really stood out. Pedagogy, really helping staff, and there was a program of this was just within Zimbabwe, but obviously we were part of a network, so we used to meet every year with the other medical schools. Heavy investment in ensuring that the health professions education was really modernized. And the layers then of research skills were added, but on top of these other priorities. James's vision, I think, was so outstanding, and was to have a research support infrastructure. So what I hear from a lot of African researchers is they have the technical skills, they have the ideas, but they need the research support infrastructure to help them to build their careers, to apply for grants, to manage their grants. And James's vision was he got extra funding, and he's built this research support center, which has been incredibly successful. We're now obviously 2023, I don't know, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars of grant money has gone through it. And that is an enduring legacy of the MEPI program. Now I want to come on to the African Mental Health Research Initiative. So this is fast forwarding now to 2015, but we had that legacy, we had that amazing opportunity to learn through the MEPI program. And by that time to have, so many, I think we have something like, 5 times now the number of psychiatry graduates. I'm just talking about the psychiatry, let alone, the other big topics that were being looked at, but just within psychiatry, I think we have 5 times the graduates now. So the number of psychiatrists has gone up from about 3 in the country as it was in 2010 to about 23 consultants now. Still a very thriving postgraduate training going on. And what Dixon did was apply to the Wellcome Trust Developing Excellence in Leadership in Science and Training program that was implemented through the African Academy of Sciences as it was then. And he had this vision of building a network of researchers, the next pipeline of researchers in mental health. This was a program across 4 African countries. And the vision was that this would be an African-led network of researchers equipped to carry out high quality research that meets the needs of their countries, create a network of 47 fellows, establish a career pipeline, integrate mental health research into existing programs such as HIV and maternal health, and ensure sustainability. And I think that's one of the many things I've learned from working with Dixon, and now since 2009, that word sustainability, you can't say it or feel it or mean it enough. It's so critical for anything that you're going to do in African countries. And this is where Dixon began, which was a theory of change, for those of you who are used to these diagrams. So if you look at the right-hand side, the goal that was to have sustainable capacity within Africa to conduct high quality, locally relevant mental and neurological substance use research in the 4 countries. And then if we work backwards, we would need the network, we'd need sustainability of the actual program. Again, backwards again, to have fellow-led research grants, go back again, the different capacities that we would need, the career development skills, the research skills, and then go back again further to the left-hand side, and you see the process of selecting and training the fellows. It kind of echoes what Prof. Rensburg started, is the ambition, the vision of thinking forward. Where do we want to be? Okay, it's very aspirational, but where do we want to be? And I must say that a lot of those aspirations have been realized. These were the outputs. The target 6 postdocs, actual 5, PhDs target was 20, actual achieved was 25, and nearly 20 MPhils as well, and quite nicely spread across the genders. The role of King's College London as a partner included providing extra external supervisors for the doctoral and postdoctoral and the MPhil programs. And because all the students were registered at their own universities, this was an important part of this program. We also co-produced with the fellows a webinar series. And then we developed this career development skills course. And I'd been very fortunate to go on a course like this at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience. It's called Thrive. And it's for developing careers and thinking about how you can really become more strategic and more rounded as a researcher. And the founders of this course were exceptionally generous. Prof. Talia Ely and now Prof. Mittal Mehta just basically said, yes, take the materials, use it as you will. And we were able to work with our steering committee, which of course had representatives of all the countries, the universities, and we adapted this program. So it's got 3 prongs: writing skills, self-development and engagement. And I'll just say a little bit about those. So self-development, we trained the fellows in peer mentoring. So the concept of developmental mentoring, as opposed to perhaps the traditional model of patronage where you have to be taken on, adopted by a very senior person. We taught them more about developmental mentoring that you can do even at peer level. Topics like team working, work-life balance, career strategy. And we actually brought somebody across from Australia. You may know them through your networks, Prof. Sheila Dabowski, who came across and has made her career about helping researchers be more strategic. For engagement, presentation skills, digital media, how to teach, how to engage policymakers. And this was an extra that we added in for the African context, with a residential academic writing course, and also work on grant writing, which is something that the early career fellows really wanted. And they subsequently, would you believe, by the end of the program, not only did we have all those postdocs, but among the fellows, they had brought in $500,000 in research funding by the end of Amari. And these are some of our publications, which I'm happy to share. And I just want to draw your attention to the 4th one on the list, because we need more big trees as well as grassroots. going beyond research capacity building to develop sustainable careers. And that very much was a theme as we came to the end of Amari 1. We're just about to start Amari 2. But these are some of the reflections. I think giving these fellows a strong grounding and ongoing mentorship in epidemiology and statistics. These are people who want to build careers in research, and as such, they need to be competitive on the world stage, and they need to be very strongly grounded and confident in the kind of methodology that's going to attract big research grants. Exposure to research career development skills, the ones I showed you, were extremely popular, and in fact, we actually managed to spread those to over 100 fellows across the Deltas program. Building the skills of supervisors, it's not enough to just think about the students. If you're going to really build capacity with and for universities in Africa, you need to think about the supervisors. That was a real challenge. Just having enough supervisors and making sure they're supported. Universities in high income countries, we are really hampered by the way that we are evaluated. Our metrics, which are almost, we have to reflect on and show for our performance development reviews. It's all about being the first author or the last author. It's all about the amount of money you bring to King's. If we're seriously going to do global health, those metrics must be reimagined. We must be recognized for being middle authors. We don't always want or need, and it would be ridiculous to keep being first and last authors. We need to promote the skills of our African partners. And in fact, my new grant, we have a policy that 80% of all our publications will be first or last authored by somebody from the continent. And also, King's needs to recognize the total value of our research grants, not just what we bring to King's. And we also need to support institutions in the Global South and funders who want to support career development among these young researchers. Thank you, Tanya. I'll finish.
Thank you so much, Melanie, and congratulations on what was achieved. Indeed, we are going to hopefully have time to discuss it a little bit in more detail. But now over to my colleague, Maria Wekesa. Maria is the program manager of the Doctoral Training Academy that Professor Rensburg explained to us here at King's. She has extensive experience working in higher education and more specifically in global engagement and partnerships. Maria has expertise in educational partnership projects, especially in Africa and East Asia, and she is interested in capacity building and social justice. Maria is also currently completing her MA dissertation in comparative and international education at UCL, the Institute of Education here in London. Maria, over to you for your experiences with the Doctoral Training Academy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya, and it's a great privilege to be part of such an esteemed panel, as I'm not an academic myself. So I guess I'll be talking more about my own experiences, about kind of the operational side. I think so much has already been said that really speaks to what we're trying to achieve at the Doctoral Training Academy. And I think it's a great opportunity to share with you about this exciting project that's happening at King's. So Professor Rensburg touched briefly on the ambition of the Doctoral Training Academy, on the fact that we're looking on a Pan-African project, really, that is aimed to boost research, capacity building, and PhD training in Africa. And the way we're going to do it, or we're planning to do it, is through the hub and spoke model with hub partners in South Africa, East Africa, and West Africa, and then spoke partners in the wider region, so we can reach, the impact can be maximized. So this is the ambition, this is the big project, but of course we had to start small, and I'm delighted to share that we now managed to launch our doctoral training academy almost. The call is out for 3 PhD students to start the engineering PhD journey at Makerere. King's very kindly provided seed funding for this, but also there has been loads of input from Makerere in terms of fee waiver, so we can make this relationship as balanced as possible. So the call has been very well received among the interested candidates, and I know Dr. Okello will be extremely busy for the next few weeks to review these applications, which will be then jointly assessed with King's. So yes, we are focusing on engineering, we are focusing on innovation, we are focusing on that development. And I think what's really important to say, and I think it resonated, and I was very delighted to hear that both Professor Rensburg and Professor Abbas mentioned that, is that we're here for long term, and that sustainability as well. Because I think it's fair to say that capacity building doesn't happen overnight. Impact doesn't happen overnight. So we really have to take it slowly, take it step by step to get to this, reach that ambition where we want to be. I guess I would also like to mention that for us, the kind of what we call equitable partnership is very important aspect of this project. We're really trying to move away very clearly from this kind of colonial or neo-colonial approaches and try to make this partnership as balanced as possible. Of course, it comes with its own challenges, because we recognize we are in different places, we can provide different sorts of input. But again, what Professor Abbas mentioned here about how do we measure that, how do we nurture this wider research ecosystem, how do we support not only the PhD students but supervisors, I think it is all reflected in this PhD training project. So I think, I'll stop here because already so much has been said, and I know Dorothy has also going to share her experience from Makerere, but apart of all the people that have already been mentioned in terms of sharing thanks, I really wanted to thank Professor Barbara Scholak from the engineering department at King's, who, regardless of her extremely busy, work, had found time to guide us through this project, and Professor Okello, who similarly, being Dean of the Engineering at Makerere, is also, key to make this a successful journey. So Professor Okello, over to you. Thank you, Tanya.
And just before, thank you, Maria, I would like to introduce Professor Okello. She's as Maria said, she's the Dean at the School of Engineering, College of Engineering, Design, Art and Technology at Makerere University, also Director of Innovation, Resilient Africa Network, hosted by Makerere University, supported by USAID. REN is a multidisciplinary network of 18 sub-Saharan African universities that seek to identify, develop and scale innovative solutions to strengthen resilience of African communities. Dorothy has been recognized with a number of international and national awards over the years, including as Top ICT Woman Uganda in the ICT Excellence Awards and many others. And she receives the Women Achievers Award 2012 for enhancing women's empowerment through science and technology. And you are a great role model for all of us, Dorothy, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts about capacity building. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tanya, and to the fellow panelists and the attendees that we have with us. It's actually a great pleasure for me to be able to share about our experience at Makerere, and then the opportunity this collaboration with the King's College and the Arua platform brings to us. I should start off by saying that Makerere itself, we are working towards becoming a research-led university. So in that spirit, therefore, working with our graduate students is key. And this is all towards delivering towards or contributing towards Uganda's national development. But that said, also we are very Pan-Africanist in spirit too, and as I've shared from my profile, we already do work also at a regional level. But coming back down to Makerere University, when this concept of the doctoral training academies was initiated through several discussions between Arua and the Plus Alliance, it narrowed down to specific interest, and eventually we have this collaboration between King's College London and Makerere University, focused on the, piloting a doctoral training academy in engineering. And so this is how the School of Engineering comes into this picture. And we are interested in a number of ways. One is how do we strengthen our contribution through engineering? And Professor Ihron has already shared the thematic areas we are focusing on for this. This is one aspect which for us is key because it aligns with our thematic areas of interest as the School of Engineering. The second key area component of interest to us in this is the collaboration with industry. And this is a very core component of the program. In fact, for the applicants, as Maria has already mentioned, the call for applications is out, and part of what we are asking our applicants to indicate is whether they already have an industry in mind working with their thematic area. If they don't, it's not a barrier because we shall help to identify one together depending on their interests, but it's again to signify right from the word go that the collaboration with industry is going to be key to this collaboration. Thirdly, it is a knowledge exchange and transfer between Makerere University and King's College London. So as part of this, as Maria indicated, the selection process is going to be having a committee that has representatives from both universities, the doctoral committee for the student. So we're going to be working together on the challenges that will have been identified based on the concept notes that the applicants, the winning applicant will send to us so that we can co-create solutions. And I think that in a way is, that is a good way for us to leverage off each other. So there are things, and I'm happy for the visits to King's College London because I've had a chance to meet several faculty and key resource persons here at King's College London. I've had a tour of the labs. I've had also some engagement with PhD students here as I attended the webinar on women in STEM, and a very powerful presentation there by Rachel Oliver on who gets funded for research and otherwise. So there's really been a lot that we can see, looked at what you have here, and supervisor training and a clear framework, and of course the other terms that I'm sure will be very familiar to the King's community, KEF and REF. Those are things I take back. So, I mean, just from this visit alone, there's so much that I can take, and I look forward to when the team from King's will now be visiting us in Makerere later in the end of April, and what they will also be able to pick so that we each learn and build each other's capacity as we move along with this. So we are excited to get started. This is the scholarships will cover 4 years of study, which is our typical duration at Makerere University, because the program we are riding currently is riding off the Makerere University PhD by research in engineering program. But as part of working together with this, we are looking at, by the second cohort, actually having a joint program, which is jointly offered by King's College London and Makerere University. This first cohort of training of PhD, 3 PhD students, are helping us towards that process, because we are going to, in a way, as engineers like to say, we're going to learn by doing. We're going to solve our problems as we go along. So we are very excited about this opportunity. Our students as well, I can tell you that by the second day, a lot of inquiries were already coming in. And I was thankful because this is a program which we are just developing. Normally the contact person for such course would have been the registrar, but I requested that it comes to the dean's office because this is very new. So there will also be questions that are likely to come through that our registrar team is not yet up to speed with, not because they don't know, but because between KCL and Makerere, we are still also learning how we want this to progress, in addition to the framework to which we have pegged this opportunity to. So there's a lot of interest for that. The students themselves will do like I have done, will have an opportunity, and theirs will be longer, for up to 3 months at King's College London, 3 to 9 months in industry. So really we are excited about this opportunity and believe that it will be a model that can then be scaled up, as has already been shared by the King's team, into the hub and spoke and a regional approach to what we're starting off today between King's College London and Makerere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Indeed, it's a very inspiring program. We are all delighted to have you here with us, visiting, and looking forward to getting to really seeing the students and seeing the program come to fruition. But thank you so much for all your efforts, and also of Ihron's support and guidance throughout these many years of incubating these ideas that now are coming to actually being a reality. Now we can open our Q&A part. We have a few minutes here. For those of us of you in the audience, please use the chat function if you'd like to ask any questions of our panelists. We have a few here that we received beforehand, and one for you, Ihron. There is the ambition published by the World Bank of producing 100,000 PhDs for Africa in the next 10 years. Do you think this is a realistic goal? Some think that is too high, not realistic. Others think that if the US or China produce 100,000 a year, setting a target for 100,000 in 10 years is not really an ambitious vision. And what are your thoughts, and what is the role of regional organizations such as ARUA, African Union, or even government policies towards achieving this goal? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tina. Yeah, very, very important question there. Yes, it's self-evident that we're sitting as we speak with a small and a fragmented system that's been underdeveloped over decades, many decades. And as we just heard from Melanie sharing with us, in depth how they've gone about contributing to the production of postgraduate capacity. It's precisely that kind of approach that's going to move us forward. I think that there are some essential ingredients, if you like, or elements for us here. The first, obviously, is institutional ambition and desire, recognition of their importance within regional systems and within the Pan-African system. Ambitious university leaders. Dorothy has shared with us the ambition of Makerere to be a research-led university. And so that ambition is essential at institutional level. And then not only at the level of the principal or the vice chancellor or the president, but at Dorothy's level, at Melanie's level. It's got to be embraced in the institution as a global responsibility of all of us. So I think that it's important for us then to have in place the institutional ambition, the institutional commitment. You've mentioned regional capacity. I'll come to that. We're going to have to put in place, build the supervisory capacity that Melanie has spoken about, as well as Dorothy. We're going to have to put in place joint teaching arrangements to grow capacity across our institutions, both within the regions of Africa, but also across, such as the examples of Kings with peer institutions in Africa. We're going to require infrastructure, research infrastructure, that is. Otherwise, we're going to be potentially having 100,000 PhDs only in the humanities and in the social sciences more broadly. And that can't be our ambition. It's going to be a balanced ambition. We've specifically on regional collaboration, the ARUA, that's the African Research University Network, our alliance is a critical and important example, alongside our regional alliances to be able to mobilize and develop regional and Pan-African agendas, as is in this instance already a burgeoning partnership between the Guild and ARUA, as we through that network seek to mobilize EU support and EU funding at grand scale to be able to build upon the 20 or so centers of excellence that have been established by ARUA and by other institutions outside of ARUA, but ARUA is a good platform upon which to do so. So in summary, what I'm drawing attention to then is the desire, the importance of ambition, the importance of focus, the absolute importance of recognizing the importance of institutional capacity, both infrastructure and human capacity, building supervisory capacity, and mobilizing the resources. I think it's self-evident as I stop that Africa's governments simply don't have the resources, are unlikely in the short to medium term to have the resource capability to be able to pull this off. And so the World Bank is good at making a pronouncement. It should step up alongside global regional government networks such as the EU, the US, Canada historically. The Nordic countries historically have been very important parties as well and partners. And for that matter, across to Asia and the Middle East. It's going to require a global effort. If there is a recognition that it is essential for Africa to move from a small and fragmented innovation system to at least a medium-sized innovation system that is interconnected, that collaborates across the regions. If there is that recognition that it is essential for Africa to build that kind of capability, then it's going to require a global collaboration of immense capacity, of immense resources, but it's not only going to be financial resources, it's going to be us working across our peer institutions, north-south, that is political north, political south, so to speak. It's going to require that kind of collaboration, and it's going to require immense scale for us to move from small to medium size output. And by medium, if small is 2-3%, By medium, I'm really saying modestly 8 to 12% contribution to global output. For that to happen, and this is I guess the key point about our work here as well in the DTA, the Doctoral Training Academy, it is for us to be able to have in place that supervisory capability, to have the PhDs in engineering, to be able to supervise. If I just pick on engineering as an example, to supervise PhDs who are going to be able to drive our ambition, and the principles for our program, if I could end with that, Tina, is our program design is focused on emerging and future needs. It's interdisciplinary, it's problem-oriented, it engages industry and government, it contributes to the development of research and innovation ecosystem within the university and beyond. And the aims is to have the potential to improve lives, to contribute to sustainable human development agenda, to cultivate entrepreneurial mindsets, to produce human-centered engineers, and to develop skills and opportunities for commercialization, knowledge, and technology transfer. Thanks very much.
We couldn't have wished for wiser, more inspiring wrapping up words that leave us with a lot of food for thought and such inspiration. And really, here's the roadmap. That's very clearly put what we need to do. I had some, unfortunately, we are at the end of our session. I had some questions about what is truly an equitable partnership, because everybody thinks their partnership is equitable and it's not true. And we would have for sure another hour really to go and dig further into what is really equitable. And then also we had some questions here, Dorothy, because you're so inspiring. Women in STEM. We had some questions for the audience about how to get more, especially yesterday, Women's International Day, to have recognized more contribution of women in academic careers. So we could have gone on for quite more time, but thank you so much. We couldn't have wished for more, for better parting words for this session. And we hope when we meet again, I look forward to that we would have moved and delivered bit by bit your vision that you laid out for us so clearly, Ihron. So thank you so much. You have been guidance and inspiration to us all, and it's a privilege to know you and to work with you, and looking forward for much more. And for all of you, thank you so much, Maria, Melanie, and Dorothy. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye now.